Hi everyone, thank you for listening in. This is my official Two Oceans 2025 race report. This race report is brought to you by our brand new Own My Run partners, BIOGEN. Thank you, BIOGEN, for making this possible. BIOGEN is a proudly South African sports supplements company. They've got such a wide variety of products available. Go online, go check them out. They are available both online for orders or in Dis-Chem stores nationwide. All right, so let's get this going. Pre-race. The day before the race, even the week before the race, I felt really good. I have this diet that I always follow prior to my races. I've done a previous vlog on that if you are interested, but I was following my usual routine. I was doing very short, easy runs in the week leading up to the race. And then the day before the race, I think it was a 20-minute jog. And then just getting everything ready for the next day. On Friday was also the press conference. The press conference was held around 12 o'clock. So it's always a bit nerve-wracking going there. It's literally like 18 hours before the race. So my mind is just in one place. And now going to the press conference, you have to sit there, you have to, face the media and say what you are planning for the day, for the race day. So it can be quite nerve-wracking, but we always try to make it quite light and also try and bring a bit of humor in where possible. This year specifically for me was a little bit frustrating because at the press conference, none of my main competitors, or what I thought would be my main competitors on race day, was there. So in a way, it was a little bit, I'm putting out on the table what I'm planning to do and what I'm planning to expect, but I'm getting no information from any other sides. So it was difficult, but in a way, it was also just, it doesn't matter, I was thinking about what I can control at that time, and what I can control is just myself and how I feel and how I do on race day. So I was just keeping that mindset, getting through the press conference, and then also handing in my seconding bottles to my seconders. I'll talk about that a little bit later on when I discuss the actual race. So there was lots to do the day before the race. And then for me, the most important, of course, is two big points that I focus on the day before the race is making sure that I take in enough nutrition, that I fuel up, that I'm full of energy, and then also to get to bed really early. For me, it was a 2 a.m. alarm, the morning of race morning. So I tried to go, I always try to go to bed really early. The Friday night before the race, we were in bed at around 8:30. I wasn't asleep straight away, but let's call it 9 p.m. I was asleep. So I did manage actually to get quite a few hours of sleep in before the race, which is a complete bonus. Race morning. Okay. Driving to the start, we left the house at around 3:30 a.m. The race starting at 5:15. Driving to the start line, it was quite warm. In the car, it was showing 18 degrees. So I knew it was quite warm, but in, counter argument, it was also wind still. So, we just drove down. As an elite athlete, it's very good. You get to warm up in the hotel right on the start line. So, if it's raining or if it's bad weather, at least you get to warm up in a dry area and do the final preparations, double lace, check your race bib for the 10th time. So I was all set. There was nothing that was out of place. There was nothing that I've forgotten. I felt okay in my warm-up. Before the race, I only do a very short warm-up of around 10 minutes and then just a couple of strides at the end. But It's always a difficult feeling because there's a lot of nerves. It's quite dark and there's a long day of work ahead. So I don't ever try to judge myself on how I feel in the warm-up, but I managed to do it. I just completed it without overthinking it and then off to the start line. So my plan going into this year's Two Oceans differed slightly from my plan going into previous years' Two Oceans. This year, my aim was to have a much faster first half of the race with the aim of opening up a gap early on into the race. So of course you take a risk for starting a race really fast. Anyone would, if you ask for advice, would tell you to take it easy in the first half of a race and then pick it up at the end. But in a way, it was still what I was going to do, but I'm just trying to really start a little bit faster with, like I say, opening up that gap. So on my race plan, it was a 17-minute 5K split, first 5K, and a 35-minute 10K split. So that equates to a 3:30 per kilometer average pace. After the 10K split, I planned to slow down slightly, or if I felt really good, maintain my speed until 20 kilometers. At the 20K, 21 kilometers, there's a slight hill, so I always take that into account. And then after the half marathon mark, the next aim for me is always the halfway point. So the halfway point, my plan was to run through halfway in 1 hour and 41 minutes, which I did almost to the second. So that I knew at that point I was, on plan. I was in the company of two other ladies up to that point of the race. I think one of the ladies dropped back a little bit before the halfway mark, but more or less around halfway is where, for the first time, I thought, I am actually really breaking away now. It felt good. It felt like I was, the race was playing out to how I imagined it or how I planned it. Going up Chapman's Peak, the first of the two big hills, I felt really strong. I could feel that it's quite hot because I was sweating a lot. That was quite different for me. But again, like I said earlier, there was no wind, so you have to take take the good with the bad. So I just continued on my plan, continued running strongly up Chapman's Peak. As we went up, I was already starting to look forward to the downhill, going from the top of Chappies into Hout Bay. That part of the race for me is one of the favorite spots, especially on a day like we had on race day where there's no headwind. You can just open up the legs and really try and make up a little bit of time, especially if you've lost a little bit of time on the uphill going up Chapman's Peak. There's also in Hout Bay, there's always a lot of support. I had my seconding person waiting for me in Hout Bay as well. So I had all the reason to look forward to getting there. As we came into Hout Bay, I was able to grab my bottle. On that point, let me just elaborate a little bit on how I do my seconding. So for the past 4 years, I've been using Adidas runners to help me with my seconding, and they are literally amazing. So I have 10 spots out on the route where a personal seconding person is waiting for me with my bottle that I've made up and handed in to them the day before the race. They have to follow quite strict rules. They have to stand in hand. That's very, very important. They are not allowed to run with me or be in a vehicle. And they also have to be within close parameters of the official race stations, water tables. So as I was running through Hout Bay, the next point that I always look forward to is reaching the marathon mark. On my plan, I was hoping to run through the marathon in about 2:34, 2 hours 34. And when I crossed the marathon mark, the time on my watch was showing 2:34. I think the official timing mat was 2:34:21. So I was still on pace on the plan that I wrote. So as I said before, my plan to go out really hard always comes with risks. I did have in the back of my mind the dream or the probability to run a record time again in the 2Oceans this year. Last year I ran the record time in 3 hours 26 minutes and 54 seconds. So that's more or less where I was aiming to finish in. But I know also that it's not realistic to think that year after year you are going to run a record. There's so many elements that plays a part into running a record time. For me, coming into a race like the 2Oceans, my number one goal is to win the race. As a defending champion, I don't want to come into the race, half fit or thinking that, I'm taking it easy this year or it's a training run. I want to compete and I want to compete for the win. And that's always my first goal. To run a record is amazing, but yeah, everything has to go right. This year in particular, I think two elements that played a role into not running the record, maybe three, I'll add another one to the list, is first of all, it was quite hot. I don't think it was ideal conditions for a record time. And I've heard of many runners really battling with the race this year and experiencing just a lot more, dehydration and sweating a lot more than usual on the 2Oceans. So I think that could have played a part. Another thing that I think plays a huge role for me is also being really pushed for my limits. As we crossed the marathon mark, the gap between myself and the second lady was already 4 minutes. And that gap just kept on increasing and increasing. On the finish line, I think the gap was around 8 minutes. So I knew more or less what was going on just from word from the supporters. So I knew that there was not a real threat for the win at that point of the race. So I think it plays a part. I think if you have competition really pushing you, you're always going to get that 101% out of yourself. And then also going out really fast also came with risks. Going out fast means often that you're going to suffer a little bit more at the latter half of the race. So I think three elements played a part into not running the record. But when I crossed the finish line, I was elated. I was 100% happy with the results. I was so happy to take the win, and the sixth win especially. It never gets old, honestly. I don't know if it will ever get old crossing that finish line. So I was 100% happy with the results. But to get back to the race, I think also going through the marathon mark, going up Constantia, knowing I've got that big lead, I thought to myself, just to stay strong, run up this monstrous hill as well and as strongly as I possibly can. At that point, I still had quite a nice group of men around me, which is for me really helpful. I feel like we can work together and we can, just share a little bit of the road. For me, it helps a lot. If you're feeling tired, you can sort of focus on the guys around you, steps, and it just, I don't know, it helps me. So I was fortunate not to be alone at that point of the race. Constantia is always tough. I don't know if anyone in the history of 2Oceans have ever found that hill easy. So it was tough, but it doesn't last forever. About at the 42k mark, you're already busy climbing, and as you get to 47 kilometers, you're at the top. So the top of Constantia was like a huge party. That's how it felt. My club, Hollywood Athletics, had a big activation area there, and the supporters were really excited to see me. They were cheering me on like crazy. At that point, you can't even hear yourself think. There's so many runners shouting and screaming. It's really an amazing spot, and it just gives you that extra bit of boost for the last bit of the race. So at that point, you've got less than 10 kilometers to go, and to get single digits, knowing that there's only single digits left to run is also encouraging. I then started the descent into sort of the Kirstenbosch area at 49 kilometers, and at 50 kilometers, there's still a few uphills. So it's not all downhill from there. And then at the 50-kilometer mark is where I had a little bit of a reality check in with myself, knowing whether I was going for the record or I was not going for the record, was quite clear to me at 50 kilometers. Because I knew that I was at that point a little bit slower than the time I passed the 50K last year. So it was a pivotal moment in the race, I guess, for me. You know, it goes through my mind. I've got a big gap. It goes through my mind. I still have a way to go. I still have to run 6 kilometers. It wasn't that I was really, really suffering, but I am tired. Of course, it's been 50Ks already. So I knew that if I wanted to run the record, I would probably have to run the fastest 6Ks that I've done ever. And it didn't to me feel like a realistic thing to do at that point. So the next obvious thing for me to do is just to try and run really strong and within myself to the finish line. And also in a way, enjoy the last 6 kilometers of the race, because it's not always to say that the last 6K of an ultra marathon is going to be very enjoyable. So that to me really stood out this year, just being able to enjoy the last 6Ks and just to take it all in and not to be pushed so hard to almost sprint for the line. Now, the one point in the race that will forever be my favorite point of the entire race is stepping onto the grass of UCT. Coming into the fields, onto the grounds, the crowds were going crazy. They were shouting Gerda, Gerda as I made my way to the finish line. Bruce Fordyce was also standing on the corner just before I stepped onto the grass, giving me a big wave. So that was very, very special. And just running onto the grass, running on the grass, waving to the crowds, it was amazing. It gave me goosebumps over my entire body, and it's a moment that I will never forget. It was so special. I was really, really pleased to take the 6th win at this iconic race, and I cannot wait to be back next year. Thank you for listening to my Two Oceans race report. I got a few questions online and I'll be going through some of them. There was a lot of questions, so I can't go through all of them, but here are some of the questions that I've received. First of all, does the runners around me disturb me in any way? And is it an annoyance, or do I enjoy having runners around me? I 100% love having company around me. We work together in many ways. In previous years, when it was quite windy, the runners also helped me in taking the front a little bit and sharing the load of the wind. We try to work together. We try to take the shortest line on the route. So to me, it's always a pleasure. Also, I train alone, so to have company around me in a race is really special. The second question was around nutrition. Well, there was a lot of questions around nutrition. What do I take on race day? What do I prefer to eat in taper week? What do I eat the night before the race? Guys, I've got one answer. I have got a website, ownmyrun.com, that I have put so much time and effort in, and I explain in detail there how I like to approach my race nutrition. There's some race plans on there for you to follow from different brands. There are recipes that I wrote myself and that I make myself. So please go on to ownmyrun.com for all nutrition questions. It's not just about nutrition. There's loads of information on there. So please go and have a look there. You will find it quite informative and in very, very in depth and in detail. So I hope that will answer all the nutrition questions. The next question I had was whether or not I was planning to break the record. Well, as I said also in my report, to win the race is always my first goal. To break the record is amazing, and it's something that I always have in the back of my mind, but it's my second goal. So I have to wait and see how the race plays out, how I feel on the day, how, like I said, the weather wasn't ideal for me this year. So that's something that you can only gauge on race day. If all the elements go well and go to plan, then yes, the record is on. But I would never run a race, risk losing or risk not winning the race trying to chase a record. The next question I have is why my Strava looks so funny. And with funny, I mean, why does it look like I do so little mileage on Strava? Yeah, the answer is very, very simple. I don't open all my runs on Strava. I open most of the interesting runs on Strava, but I wouldn't open every day's easy runs and the warm-ups and the cool-downs and every single workout. So I just open up the interesting runs that I feel people will find interesting, and also, of course, to keep a little bit of the social side of running. I love that. I would open runs when I'm running with other people. So that is the answer why my Strava graphs doesn't always look so ideal. The next question that I would like to discuss is about altitude. Someone asked whether what the reason is that I go to altitude and whether I think that it makes a difference. Well, altitude training is a very traditional method of training. We see, in my opinion, most of the best runners around the world training at altitude, either living there all year round or at least going there for their training blocks. So for me, I think it makes a huge difference. It helps. The psychological part of it is that it helps increases your red blood cells. If you do it right, of course, training at altitude is always, it needs to be within bounds. You need to control your efforts and making sure that you are not exerting yourself too much, because training at altitude is tough, but recovering at altitude is also a little bit slower than recovering at sea level. So it's that balance, and if you get the balance right, then 100% yes, altitude training is very beneficial. And then the last question that I am going to answer on here is why it looked like I slowed down in the race. On the commentary, it looked like I was 100% on for a record right till the last kilometers in the race, and then suddenly it didn't look like that anymore. So in the commentary, I think it can be sometimes a little bit deceiving, because the average pace is your finish time, predicted finish time, is calculated on your average pace until that point. So of course, in the first half of the race, it looks like you are going to run so fast and have such a fast finish time, but it doesn't take into account that the hills is still to come. So what I think would have been better is if there was a comparison between the points where I was at that point compared to where I was at that point last year. And I think that would have given the viewers a much more accurate idea whether I was really on for a record or not. Thank you for tuning in. It was an awesome pleasure to share my experience with you all. Thank you again to BIOGEN. If you want to see more and if you want to learn more, please go to ownmyrun.com. We are an online running platform. There's lots and lots of information on there. There's free content. There's also a subscribers section. You can become a subscriber for 200 Rand a month. Subscribers get more. For instance, I will be publishing my 2 Oceans training diaries leading up to the race very soon. There's many other training diaries that I've already published on there. There's an online running forum. There's lots and lots for you to see. So hope to see many of you there.